Hi there, viewers out there on the internet. Charlie Evans here. I'm going to talk a little bit about ancient Chinese civilization this morning for the History 111 course. I'm going to admit straight from the beginning that it's not a topic on which I am an expert. I know a lot more about Chinese history in the 20th century. I know a little bit about Chinese history in the classical period, and I'm going to just have a few remarks about um, classical Chinese civilization this morning. The first thing I want to say is that when we talk about the classical period, we've already talked about classical Mediterranean, classical South Asia. We're roughly dealing with the period of time from 500 BCE to 500 CE, roughly a thousand years, a period of time in which each of these uh, civilizations emerged in a specific geographical entity, in which each of these civilizations emerged as in the form of an empire, and in which and also a period of time in which each of these civilizations, Chinese, South Asia, Mediterranean, emerged as a unified economic entity. You also have unifying features like religion and language, and to a lesser extent art and architecture and everything. And so these kind of defined, unique, large-scale societies in these geographical regions. Now, when we're studying Chinese, we got a few problems here. And the first problem, frankly, the language is difficult. The lettering, the pronunciations, but you go beyond that, and you see that there's still some basic features that we studied with Mediterranean and we studied with South Asia. Um, we have the emergence of civilization roughly 2500, 2000, roughly 4500 years ago. It's the same as with the Near East, the Mediterranean, and South Asia. It's roughly the same period of time. Um, in China also you have the emergence of civilization and settled struck God and settled agriculture around the major river systems, the Yangtze and the Huanghe, or the Yellow River as it's often known in English, um, the same as um, the Tigris and Euphrates in the Near East. When we're looking at classical Chinese, we're also looking at a succession of dynasties over time, and I've written these down so I don't forget them: the Yangshao, Longshan, Shang, Zhou, Qin, Han, and uh, on the course website there's a couple of timelines for remembering the dynasties. You don't actually have to remember the dynasties. You don't even have to remember the actual years. But what you should remember is kind of the succession of events that occurred from about 2500 to 500, and dynasty, anarchy. And as China developed over those thousands of years, slowly some of the formative characteristics of Chinese society emerge. Uh, the specific form of writing emerged, the specific language emerged, the specific philosophy. Some call it a religion. There's a fuzzy boundary there about Confucianism. Is it a religion? Is it an ethical philosophy? But it also became a kind of characteristic mode of government and how China was to be governed. That became a feature of Chinese society. They also had this feature called the Mandate of Heaven, which emerged in the Zhou dynasty, um, which meant that uh, heaven had conferred political authority on a specific family or a family of rulers, and that gave them the authority to rule China, and this is why you have these dynasties. But the other thing, the flip side about the mandate of heaven is that heaven could revoke that mandate, and that would be justification then for overthrowing the ruling dynasty. I'm going to break right here. I'm resuming right now. And so the Han Dynasty, really lasting into the third century of the Common Era, is often considered maybe the height of classical China, a period of time in which Confucianism was the reigning authority, the reigning moral authority, reigning bureaucratic authority in China. China had emerged as a vibrant, vibrant and strong civilization in East Asia, and the most dominant civilization in East Asia, and one of the most important civilizations in early world history. Okay, thanks.